With ADD, I think much faster than everybody else.
How important is the initial contact with the customer as it relates to getting all the way to the finish line of closing a deal?
That you practice like you play.
So what do you love about sales?
Oh man, I love everything about sales. I mean, the first piece of sales is that the rush that you get after a sale. It's like a football player when they get their first touchdown.
Yeah.
That rush is just, it's every salesman knows what I'm talking about right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And every sale after that. And I don't care if you've been in it for 20 years, you get the sale, you walk out of the house, and it's those sales that you just didn't think you were going to get. You know, that they were giving you all kinds of roadblocks and you're not getting it, and we got 20 other people coming out, and you walk out with that deal and it just feels so good.
I couldn't agree more. And having a sales background, it's quite the feeling. It's a rush.
Now the other piece of this is you also get to feel like a hero. You know, you go in, everybody's got a problem.
Sure.
And the fact that everybody's got a problem, you now can fix that problem if you go in the right way. And it also leads to the sale. When they sense that you are wanting to be the hero and not the villain meaning someone's going to lie, cheat, and steal to get the job. I mean, that in itself makes you feel good. When you meet your clients and they become friends later. That's what I like about sales.
That's I got to tell you, I couldn't have said it better myself, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mission Control Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stearns with Ascend Digital Agency, and this episode is proudly sponsored by the team over at Roofer. So if you need clean and pristine proposals, instant roof measurements, contact the squad. Chuck Thokey. I mean, you don't really need an introduction. You're creating a crazy amount of buzz for yourself within the industry. I feel very privileged for myself and for my audience to have you on today. So thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for having me on, man. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one thing that you want people to know about Chuck Thokey?
Here's the thing that I want everybody to know, because there's sales trainers everywhere. And they keep popping up. Every salesman that closes a deal all of a sudden becomes a sales coach, it seems like. And they're coming out and they're wanting to teach Sales 101, which everybody should know, as we all want to know the basics. But where it comes from me and why people should know who I am is because we teach the entire thing. We're going to get into the psychology, the philosophy. We're going to help them know the why behind sales. When people say, hey, Chuck, why have you been able to build such large organizations? It's because I built the teams. I didn't build the organization. I built the team. And these teams are unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable.
Man, we got a lot to talk about. Let's
one start at the top.
Hold on. I got one more question. What's one thing that most people don't know about Chuck?
I would usually say it's the fact that I was an aerospace engineer, but I've been saying it so often now that most people know. I tried acting in the day. I tried Hollywood, and my roommate went on to be in like Days of Our Lives and stuff like that. And for me, I've always been told, oh, you're just too big, or too ugly, whatever the case may be. But for me, I went out and I actually tried the Hollywood thing and found out just how hard it really is. But I got a chance to meet some really cool people along the way.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's all, for me, it's all about the journey, right?
Yeah.
And there's very interesting components to everyone's journey, and it usually looks significantly different from one person to the next. Yeah. So you tried the acting. All right. Well, I mean, dude, that's
I'll tell you, just like you just said, it is about the journey. That's what I love about this business is it gives us enough financial freedom to have that journey. There's so many of these people that I see all the time, and they're going to work in a factory, And that's their journey. The same thing every single day. But we earn such a great living in this business that we get to have the trips that we want to go and find out what this world has to offer us. Sometimes we get to have the toys that, again, it's part of that journey. And so that's, again, sales, or even in just home improvement, it gives us the opportunity to have that journey. People that are going out and getting their pilot's license. That's on my bucket list this year, is to go out and get my pilot's license. Why? Because I can.
Yeah, so funny story about that real quick before we start with, because I do want to take it from the top. I want to start from the beginning. I have a client that recently signed up, so shout out to Thomas Adams over in Pennsylvania, Limitless Roofing. And the first flight he took was to RoofCon this past year,
wow.
a couple months ago, right? Fucking guy's in a plane, flying a plane like 4 months later or whatever. Like, I was like, yeah, you really went for it, huh? He's online like looking for a plane to buy. I was like, good for you, man. I'm terrified of planes.
Wow.
You won't catch me flying a plane anytime soon, I promise you. But good for y'all that do it and want to do it. I applaud you and I support you. Mike Stearns for the people. Take it from the top, brother. Start at the beginning. What was your upbringing like? Let's go through the whole thing.
So my mom was an executive for NCR, and then my dad was a photographer, and that's really where I got the want for sales. We went on some hard times, and my dad had to go out and sell these frames, Black Hawk frames, to all these other photographers. And it was funny because my dad was one of the top photographers in at least the state. I wouldn't say the country, but at least the state. And so when he travels around, it was a privilege for him to go into these other organizations. And there was one company up in Akron, Ohio. We went in, and this guy really took a liking to me. And he looks at me, he says, son, every deal has a sale made. And he says, I'm going to make that sale, I promise you. And I said, well, when you say that, what does that mean? He says, I'm going to sell something, even if it's the tie off my neck. And at that moment, I knew I wanted to be in sales. And so, even in high school, I sold lollipops, the blow pops. I mean, if I could sell something, I was selling it. I loved sales. I sold shoes. If you can think of it, I sold it. I sold the what are those telephone cards? Back during college, I sold those. If I could sell anything, I was selling it, and I loved sales. Then got into aerospace. Aerospace is my passion. I absolutely love jets. I love what they mean and how fast it can get us around. I like how they work. And so I was an aerospace engineer for about 4.5 years. I was the youngest aerospace engineer in the country. I was an aerospace engineer by age 19. Now, what people don't know is that I was labeled EMR inside of school. EMR stands for Educably Mentally Retarded. Now, people that listen to that and they start to giggle, it's like, well, don't laugh, because they call it ADD today. And now you go into a group and say, hey, everybody that feels they have ADD, raise their hand, and like 90% of the place goes up. And back then it was an issue for many of us, and now it's mainly because the media, or it's because of social media, whatever. That's why we become that ADD anymore. But that became a gift for me. And because with ADD, I think much faster than everybody else, or most people around me. And so when I'm asking you a question, I'm already on the third question I'm going to be asking you. I'm already thinking of that. And so as I think about that, I also forget what you just told me. And so you'll see that I write a lot of things down. I have Post-it notes everywhere. I've got these books everywhere that I write stuff down in, so I don't forget it. My wife laughs about it because she calls me 10-second Tom for one reason, not the other. But she knows that she'll tell me something about 10 seconds later. I'm asking, like, what did you just say back then? And a lot of that's just because we're busy. but also, I just have to, I just remember things differently. And so getting into aerospace, what I realized as a functional test technician, where they would turn on the aircraft and we were there to make sure that aircraft could fly. And it would be built and we'd turn it on and nothing worked. Well, what I realized was that the same people were making the same mistakes because they were building it, making the same mistakes. So I was writing down everything. If I had a problem, I wrote down the problem, wrote down the solution, and then before we knew it, I was fixing things so much faster than everybody else. So I went and I asked my manager at the time. I says, "Can I have the next 3 aircraft?" He goes, "Yeah, absolutely." And I said, "Can I pick my people?" And so I picked my team. We picked the aircraft. It typically took about 3 months from the time the aircraft got from the back of the hangar to the front of the hangar. There was 3 aircraft in a row. But the aircraft in the back, it took about 3 months for it to leave that hangar and go to what we call flight. And once I got a hold of those 3 aircraft, I got them out in 3 weeks. And I mean, saved millions of dollars. And as of today, Learjet, Raytheon, Airbus, they all use the techniques that I used there, just realizing how fast these aircraft were getting out. They could fix the aircraft so much faster and they could prevent it. So from there, I got into the engineering department and they worked me through. But that's how I was able to I'm no Doogie Howser when they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're the youngest aerospace engineer in the country." I'm no Doogie Howser. I'm still as goofy as ever, but it's how, we got there. It's understanding that I had something to give at that time. And then 9/11 happened, got thrown into sales. Long story short, came into home improvement sales with bath fitter. And you could see how big bath fitter is today. I mean, they sell more bathtubs than Lowe's, Home Depot, and Menards put together 4 times. I mean, they're absolutely massive. And from there, Able Roof came calling. I had a recruiter just keep pounding my phone, and I was like, "Man, I just do not want to be a roofer." In Dayton, Ohio, a roofer is a husband and a wife in a smoky loft somewhere. That's just what my thoughts were.
Sure.
And so then I went out. They really wanted me just to sit down and talk to them. When I got there, this place looked like Walmart. I mean, it was already a very big organization. And so, again, long story short there, I joined in with Abel and Mr. Roof. And as you can see, I mean, they're massive today. Absolutely massive. Yeah. Now, when people are like, "Oh, Chuck did that," Chuck didn't do that. I didn't do that. They have 300 employees there. They have some phenomenal managers. They have great people that take their job very seriously, and that's what got them to that level. I mean, we had a great culture. And so, to build these organizations, it's not one person that comes in and does it. It takes the ideas of that person to do it, and they take it and decide how they're going to disseminate that information across the rest of the company. But it takes people. It takes the right people. You have to make sure that you have the right people. These organizations like Chuck, come in here and train us, and we're going to be this big organization. It's like, well, first we need to figure out who you have. Do you have the right people that can take the information that I'm going to give you and take it to market? Because many times that's not the case. When I work with a sales manager, man, I tell them, you got to draft your players.
It's so true. And, I might have ruffled some feathers with some content the other day. It said, "Stop wasting money on courses in 2023. But that was the hook, right? Without the if you don't have somebody in place that's going to be able to execute the strategy that you're taught. Or if you don't know that they're going to be there for the long haul, because otherwise you're investing $6,000, $10,000, $15,000 in something where you've got nothing because all the information is no longer within the company. It's the same
Stop
thing.
buying silver bullets, man. I love that you said that, because that is, and me being a sales trainer and me agreeing with you, it sounds odd, but yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Stop buying the programs in 2023 unless you have the right people. Most people will buy silver bullets. That's what they're seeing, and they're going to all right, we're going to go and invest in this. And it's only because that company made that program look really good. There's so many organizations or so much advertising that we see on Facebook and any of the social medias. And when you dive into it, it has nothing to do with our industry. I mean, I have gone round and round with, and it's okay for me to mention this name because he's okay with it, but Grant Cardone. His information has nothing to do with home improvement, but so many people will invest $97 a month, and these folks, they laugh all the way to the bank with it. But you need to make sure that the information that you're getting, this right here, the pivot point cards, I'm not the only one that's walking around with flashcards. But you can buy flashcards, and what these flashcards are for, or these other companies' flashcards are for, insurance agents. And you're like, well, like 2 of them I can use. Make sure that if you're going to buy stuff like this, that it has to do with you, your industry, and you have the right people to put it in place.
That's such good advice, and thank you for being forthright and loud and proud about that, because it's it takes integrity, and it feels like that's becoming more and more so a scarce commodity in today's world. So yeah. I appreciate.
Well, you're not going to find me teaching insurance agents and real estate agents. You will not find me. I will stay in my lane.
Yeah.
These other guys, they want to be millionaires, and it's like, if I become a millionaire, it's because I helped the home services industry get to where they wanted to be. It's not because I helped everybody under the sun figure out how to answer a question.
I like that. It's staying in your lane, staying focused, I think it's important. I think a lot of people get distracted, and that can be a detriment to not only your business but the people that you service, right? I struggle with it every day, staying focused. And I'm glad that you brought up the point of like the EMR and the ADD. I just literally was on, I don't know if I was on a podcast or in conversation. I was on Ritalin for the first 15 years of my life, or 10 years, whatever, through high school, right? And it was always, they at first they were like, Mike keeps disrupting everybody because he's finishing his work and then fucking with everyone. So we have to do something. So I skipped a grade, right? I went in in first grade, I went into a transitional second grade class, and they're like, if you pass the second grade exam, you go to third grade. I was like, great. So we did that. That didn't work. And then it's like, well, obviously there's something wrong. We got to medicate him, right? So they started shoving Ritalin in my face.
Slow this guy down.
Yeah, exactly. Calm the fuck down, Mike. But for me, like looking back in hindsight, sure, it's a cape and a kryptonite in the sense that, like you said, fucking 10 seconds later, I can completely forget what my train of thought was, what you said to me, and it's fine. But I leverage technology to offset that or write things down, right? Like you find workarounds, and the amount of productivity that I get, if I wake up at 5 a.m. and start writing emails and like that clarity that I have in that time, like that's how I manage myself. Those few hours where people aren't fucking texting me, I'm not getting 37 notifications, employees calling me, customers calling me, like that's my safe place where I can clear my mind, think of things, execute things. And then the rest of the day I'm super productive, but you know what? Maybe there were 3 things that were missed. But if I was twice as productive as I would be otherwise, it's not terrible, right? Because we're netting up in a big way. And those things, they'll come to fruition when I run through my CRM, look through my tasks that night, and then I'm like, okay, so those are the first 3 things we'll do tomorrow.
That's right.
Big deal. Yeah, that's so I can relate. I can empathize. It's all good, brother. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, like the stigma around, at least that when I was a kid, that was around like ADD. And now, like you said, everybody's like, give me Adderall.
They pass that stuff around like candy anymore.
It's wild, bro. It is wild. I stopped taking Ritalin, I think, when I was like 14. Honestly, I didn't really notice a huge difference, but they said that it worked, so whatever they say. Yeah, I love the idea of the pivot point cards, right? I haven't gone through them, but I saw a piece of short form content that you did talking about the pivot cards, so it worked. Yeah. And I was like, man, that's a really good idea. I think that how important is role playing for reps?
It's very important as long as they do it right. A lot of these sales managers, they allow jokes to come in where the 2 guys will sit next to each other and they're like, oh, honey. And it's like, hey, guys, this has to be serious. We're not sitting here joking around. We have to role play as if you're in the house. This isn't me saying this. Was I think it was Michael Jordan said that you practice like you play.
Yeah.
if we're going to go in the house and we're going to do a good job, we need to do a good job here. And when I go into an organization and they really want to know what their problem is I ask, can I come in during a sales meeting? And when I get there, I'll ask, I say, hey, I just need two guys. It's like a magician saying, hey, I just need two volunteers. And so they're raising their hand. I'm like, hey, just come on up here. One of you is a sales rep and one of you is the customer. Now, the sales rep, what I'd like for you to do is I want you to think of the last homeowner that you sold. Can you tell me the name of the last homeowner you sold? And they're like, yeah, it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Can you tell me a little bit about Mr. and Mrs. Smith? And they'll go through it. And what they're doing is they're telling the guy that's playing the customer how to play the customer. So I hope you just heard what he just said about the customer, because now you are Mr. Smith. And for you, what I want you to do is I want you to present the price the exact same way that you did last night or whenever that was to Mr. Smith. And then I'm looking over at the sales manager because he's about to see something that he is not going to want to see. And I says, all right, go ahead. And here comes this insanely horrible rendition of their price presentation. Mm-hmm. And the sales manager is like, that's not what I told you. I'm like, whoa, don't get mad at him. Yeah. Don't get mad at him. I says, I already knew what I was going to see. I just wanted you to see it. So now, with everybody that just saw that, we're now going to get on the same page. We're going to get the plan. We're going to execute the plan. That plan is how we're going to present price from today forward. And so again, we have to show them, because if there's one time or one place inside of the appointment where we will screw things up, it's going to be that price presentation.
Should the price presentation come at the end?
It should come at the end, because they have to earn the price. The homeowner has to earn the right to have a price given to him. We used to at Able, Steve Weil, the founder, used to call it the cookie. Like, we're never going to give the homeowner the cookie unless they deserve it. And that means that they've listened to us give the value. They've listened to us, and now they deserve the cookie. They deserve to hear what they've been wanting to hear the entire time. Because the moment you give price, game's over. If you give them the price and then start giving your value, they hear nothing, because all they're hearing is, I just can't afford that. Well, you didn't give them the reason why they need to be able to afford that.
Now, what do you do? Do you do any type of price conditioning along the way throughout the selling process?
You have to do price conditioning when you're going to sell retail. Even with Storm, we do price conditioning because we want to upgrade the homeowner. And upgrades come in the form of suggestions, not sales. But inside of retail, we have to price condition, because I have never given a price and the homeowner's like, all right, yeah, man, that was really cheap. Really? That's all? If they did, something's wrong. And I'm looking at my pricing. I'm like, oh, I missed something.
Yeah, I left some meat on the bone there. Fuck.
Yeah, so we have to price condition. There's 4 different ways that we price condition, but the main way is showing them a third party on what they charge, and inside of or outside of showing them another competitor's price, which is something that you can do. But outside of giving them a competitor's price, what we do is give them the industry price for their area, and you can use the cost versus value in your area. You can Google cost versus value. It's through Remodeling Magazine, and it will show you the average cost of every trade, whether it's your garage door, your front door, your kitchen. It'll talk about an upgrade or an upgraded kitchen versus a medium grade kitchen, whatever. But again, it shows them what the average price would be, and it'll even give them the scenario. This is a 30 square roof with 230 pound felt, whatever. It's going to give them all the reason for that price. And when we show that to the homeowner, like in Ohio here, it's like $850 a square. And I'm going to look at them very straight face and say, well, this is for a 30 square roof. Yours is about 28, so it's not far from it. So I'm guessing you were expecting to spend around $20,000, right? And they're like, no. Well, luckily for you, my job is to save you money. Now, we do pauses in certain ways, but that's why I'm going to say my job is to save you money. And that's what I intend on doing today. And so I've blown them away. And now they're thinking, because before I got there, they were thinking $8,000, $9,000. I just showed them that the average price in their area is $20,000. And then when I bring in a price of 15, they're like, man, I thought this was going to be like $18,000, $19,000. So that is your price anchoring or your price conditioning. And that's just one way of doing it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So in the scenario that you come into where you've got the two volunteers to help in the magic trick of blowing the mind of the sales manager of how terrible of a job his team is doing presenting price, what is most commonly, once you work through that, what most commonly leads to that breakdown in the system or process?
So the sales reps train the sales manager just like the homeowner trains a sales rep. You know, everybody talks about how, man, we're good. Everything's good. And the sales manager feels like his whole job is to tend to his flock. He doesn't understand that sales management is completely different than any other type of leadership. I mean, this is results-based leadership. You have to know every day what your stats are. You know, I always know where my team is. I know where each player is. And so when it kind of comes down to when I'm at the sales schedule, the appointment schedule. These people that allow the phone room to fill in the schedule, and that's the schedule, and the sales manager never looks at it. I mean, the NFL, if you look at the best coaches know how to manage the clock. Well, it's the same thing in sales. The best sales managers know how to manage their calendars. And so even though the calendar may be filled and you have, Bobby with 3 appointments, doesn't mean that Bobby's going to end up with those 3 appointments. I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at those and say, hey, this appointment right here is better under John. So I'm going to move that over to John. The worst, and there's going to be people watching this, and I want them to hear this. The worst way to manage a calendar or schedule is to say we have territories. Oh, we have territories. And so Bill handles the northern territory and Bob, he does the southern territory. That is the worst way of ever managing your team. There has to be healthy competition in there. If they don't feel like someone can take their spot, they don't care. They're paying their bills. You may not be able to pay your bills because they're only closing at 20%. But again, that kind of average is in there. When you look at what got to that point is sales reps are going to sell the sales manager. If they're good, my top selling sales rep that I have worked with personally, his name is Chris Smith. His brother is Rich Smith, and they can manipulate a sales manager better than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, they know how to get leads. And I know they're going to watch this. But, and Chris, God love him, with Chris, there was many times where, this guy sells pound for pound retail $3 million a year. And selling $3 million in retail is not an easy thing. That's like selling $10 million in Storm.
Right.
And so selling $3 million pound for pound every single year, and I still don't think he knows what fascia is. Yeah. He just knows how to sell.
Right.
But he also knows how to sell the sales manager. And so sales managers need to know their people. They need to know, we do this through key competencies. If you go through top rep, all the managers will get sales rep key competencies. This is everything that sales rep needs to master and continue to be tested on so that they can earn the right to run appointments. When people look at their teams, they're like, oh, we just want a family feel. That's not a company. I love every one of my sales reps, and every time that I have let a sales rep go, they may have not known it at that time that they just needed to be successful someplace else. They're good at something, and this just isn't it. And I need to let them go to be successful. There was a guy, Jim Burlon in Bathfitter, and I let him go. And man, the guy almost ran me down in the parking lot on his way out. That's how mad he was. And as of today, he's the most successful insurance agent in the Kettering or Dayton area. This guy's making more money, probably 4 times what he was making as a sales rep at Bath Fitter. And when I'm sitting down in front of him, he now knows why. There's been other sales reps that I've had to let go, and it doesn't take long for them to thank me because I knew they had blinders on. All they were looking for is to pay their bills. And for me, I realized that this just isn't for them. So all my sales reps respect what I do, how I do it. They may not like me at the time because I can be pretty intense.
Sure.
But inside of a sales meeting, I can get pretty passionate. And I'm not sitting there throwing things around, but I do need them to know that there's a purpose why I'm a little upset. And that may be because somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. As you can see, I jump around a little bit, but there's a female sales rep that came into one of our sales meetings, and she's like, man, can you believe it? I got into this appointment, and the guy before me, he didn't even leave a price. I'm like, well, let me ask you, who all was at that meeting? Was both husband and wife there? And she goes, no, it's just the husband. I says, do you think that was the same case for the sales rep before you? Probably. And I just let it sink in, and everybody else in that room knew where I was going with this. Yeah. And I said, now who's the smarter person? Right. You gave price to a one leg. They didn't. Who do you think got the job? And she goes, well, I don't know. I says, pull that homeowner out. And let's go ahead and give him a call. So I did a courtesy call right there in a sales meeting. Mr. Smith? Yeah, Mr. Smith. This is Chuck. I'm the quality control manager here at 123 Roofing. And I just want to know how everything went. And I knew what I was about to hear. Oh, we've already gotten this taken care of. Oh, do you mind if I ask? First of all, congratulations. Do you mind if I ask, who did you guys end up going with? Who do you think they went with? The guy that didn't give a price went back. Right. He went back. Now, it also ended up being a client of mine, but because he knew how to deal with a one leg and he was going to do it right, and she didn't. Again, this is things that we expect of our sales reps, that they know every part of these key competencies. They know how to deal with a one leg. They know how to deal with any of the stalls and excuses that they're going to get. They know how to deal with my biggest fear. They know how to deal all of this. That's why they are who they are. That's why many of these sales reps are now speaking, because they now understand the process and they want to teach. So it's just a compound effect.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like getting passionate with salespeople, I think it's well received because I think sometimes you got to throw the power punch towards salespeople because I mean, at the end of the day, like who is a salesperson? They're competitive. They have an ego. They have that drive, right? And they're a dominant personality in most instances. So right. Most people with that personality, if you look at it like a boxing match, like, yeah, you're going to jab around a lot, but sometimes you got to hit them with the overhand right, but let them know like what time it is, grab their attention. Now that I've got your attention, we're going to talk about some shit. Let me ask you this. What is the appropriate way to structure a sales meeting? Because I've worked with a lot of contractors, man, over the last 7-8 years, and I feel as if this is something that people struggle with.
So the biggest problem with sales meetings is that they decide what they're going to talk about 10 minutes before the meeting. That's the biggest problem with sales meetings. And the sales managers that I work with, I make them come up with the next 10 topics. Now, I tell them that it's going to cover the next 20 weeks. Why? Because there are times when you're halfway through the week and you're like, man, I know that I'm going to talk about emotional intelligence this next week, but man, we got to shelve that because this is the biggest issue we have, and I'm going to slide this issue. This is what we're going to talk about. So now you just moved those 10 weeks. So those 10 topics can grow to 20 really quick.
And they're fluid, right?
But you have to have that topic that you're going to talk about. And you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. And what I mean by this is you have to bring the problem. Guys, this is the problem. This is the solution. And by the time we're done today, you better understand it. Because if you don't understand it, we're going to reschedule your appointments and go ahead and we're going to continue to work. because it has to be mastered. We have to. You can't just show up and be the hero as a sales manager and then walk away feeling really good because of the content you just gave, because none of them heard anything you just said. If I'm going to sit and I'm going to talk about the platinum rule or the emotional intelligence or role versus identity, is I want to know that they understood it, and how are they going to use that information when they leave that meeting. Now, here's how you structure a sales meeting. Is we're going to talk about the wins first. We're going to talk about the wins. We're going to cheer on everybody. We're going to make sure that it's not that, hey guys, such and such sold this much. Well, probably such and such, Bill, is always the one on top. And I'm not going to sit there and clap for Bill every week, because Bill's going to hey, great, another one of these. But what I'm looking for is what we call, and anybody that's listening to this or watching this, I want you to write this down. This is the one thing that you need to watch out for, is what we call on the movers. This is a sales rep that may be on the bottom and you're starting to see them creep up. Male or female, they're starting to creep up. That is what you celebrate. Not the guy that's always doing a great job.
Right.
He doesn't even care about it. Because he knows that his job, that's just what he does. Right. He knows how to sell. Yeah. So we're not going to clap for Bill week after week. What we're going to do is we're going to clap for Heather, that is climbing the ranks. We do, if you got to watch doing it week after week, but I love the motivational videos. There is a thing I think it's called Fearless Motivation on YouTube. They have some great motivational videos. And you want to make sure that if you show one of these videos, that it goes along with what it is you're going to talk about. Don't just rile everybody up and then talk about something completely different. If you're going to talk about not being average, then there's a ton of videos about not being average.
Right.
And it usually entails E.T., Les Brown, or Tony Robbins.
I fucking love E.T. That's my guy. I listen to his shit all the time. I was listening to him in the sauna this morning.
I sat next to him on the plane, and I'm glad that plane ride was long, because it was a very interesting conversation. That guy's life, man, it pales in comparison.
Trash cans in Michigan to fucking speaking on stages all over the world.
Yeah.
God, yeah, I would. Yeah. Man, you're very fortunate for that. That I can imagine what I would feel like sitting there having that conversation.
But so you have that motivational video. Everybody's really pumped up. We're going to go into the topic. And then when we leave, that we are going to cover some of the expectations. Guys, we're getting ready for this week. Now, I hear a lot of companies that will do sales meetings on Fridays. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, our sales meeting's on Friday, so you're going to motivate them to go right into the weekend.
I checked out Thursday at 6, bud.
Now, some people say, oh, man, even worse, they have the sales meeting on Saturday. If you expect your people to work on Saturday and Sunday, that Saturday is the best time to have a sales meeting. If they have the option to work the weekends, if they you guys alternate the weekends, that is not the time to have it. But if your team is mandated that they're going to canvas on the weekend or whatever, Saturday is a great time to have a sales meeting. But the best time to have a sales meeting is on Tuesdays.
I love
Mondays,
that because
we're just coming back. Yeah.
In my past life, I was a successful sales representative, and there was nothing fucking worse than sitting there Sunday night and knowing that I had to go in an hour-long meeting. And I think that obviously what's being discussed, how the sales meeting are structured, and who the leader is plays a lot into this. But I can't imagine any circumstance where I'm excited to go to work at 8 a.m. and fucking sit to somebody rah-rah for an hour.
Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I sat through it for years, and I'm like, can we do Tuesdays? So you've confirmed what I've always surmised is I don't like the beginning and end of the week. I feel good. You made me feel good, Chuck. I did something right in my mind. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. How important is the initial contact with the customer as it relates to getting all the way to the finish line of closing a deal?
Your first impression is very important. And these sales reps that pull up to the house and then they get their stuff ready and they finally get out after 2-3 minutes. I mean, you're already behind the 8 ball. They're watching you on Ring. They got this ring 2-3 minutes ago and you still haven't knocked on the door. You know, it said that someone pulled up or that there was motion outside and they're still waiting for you to knock on the door. You're already behind it. And
Yeah, so
you have 30
for
seconds
my
to get out of
clients
that.
that we've had conversations of, well, this lady's now looking at me. I got to go because just hang up on me next time the minute you get there and walk right to the door.
Yeah, you absolutely. I mean, if you are on the phone, take that phone call down the street. And then if it's that important, you know, yeah, you may show up a couple minutes late. If it is that important, it better be pretty important.
Right.
But if it's not, I mean, get off the phone, pull up to the house and get to the door. But know what to say when you get to that door. Know what to say. And when any of these sales reps are like, ah, man, come on, I know what to say when the door opens. And they sound like, you know, Yosemite Sam when they get there, you know. Or no, what is it?
Right
Elmer Fudd. Well, so when that door opens, you got to know exactly what needs to happen. We're going to set the stage right now. And what that means is I'm going to ask, you know, Mr. Smith. Yeah, Mr. Smith, my name is Chuck Thokey. I'm here with 123 Roofing. Is now still a good time to spend the next 60 to 90 minutes with me? You're like, oh, yeah. And is it okay where I parked? Oh, yeah, you're fine, man. My wife had went to the store. You guys are going to be long gone by the time she gets back. She takes a while. So now I know I have a one-leg situation. And or the guy might say, yeah, everybody's in for the night. It doesn't matter where you park. All right, great. And do you mind if I go ahead and put some booties on? We do booties now instead of taking our shoes off. You know, everybody takes their shoes off. So now we get these bright purple booties that we put on. And again, it's something different from what everybody else is going to do. It's just a small thing, but you never know what is going to be that one thing that pushes that homeowner over the edge.
Yep.
And so we're going to put those booties on. We're going to walk inside. The other reason why we use booties is we're roofers, so we usually have some kind of boots or something on, and I don't want to untie and tie every time I come in and out. But I do want to get into the house. I don't want to sit there on their front porch and have them say, well, the roof's up there. You know, I want to try and work myself into the house and have a conversation with them. And then we have an entry and warm-up statement. I'm going to narrate what's going to happen. You know, I'm going to tell them what's going to happen today. And the way that I do this is just by asking them. So, by the way, did the people in the office, did they tell you what to expect from me today? And they're going to say, I don't think so. Great. And then I'm going to take them through everything that I plan on doing.
Set the expectation.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're laying out the rules of the game or setting that expectation as to what they can expect from you today, which entails asking you for the order.
I like that. I like that a lot. Let's take it a step further. How important is that initial conversation that happens when, you know, they're on Google and they're like, roofer near me, best roofers Dayton, Ohio, and they're like, oh shit, I'm gonna call this person, and then ring, hello. Like, how important is that first contact?
Yeah. You know, so there's a coach that really centers in on the phone team. Her name is Megan Beatty. And if you haven't heard of her, look her up on Facebook. But she is exceptional. I do something very similar. She goes so much further. But when we look at who's going to pick up the phone, and I'm not going to say any company names, but I was in a company and I'm sitting there watching all the owners. There's a couple different owners. I'm sitting there watching the owners and some admins answer the phones. And I'm just watching. The guy comes out and he says, Chuck, man, everything okay? I'm like, no. I said, now I know why our close rate is so low. He goes, did you notice what was going on in the sales meeting? I says, it has nothing to do with sales. I said, you buffoons are sitting there answering the phones. And let me ask you, man, what do you have going on right now? Are you busy right now? He goes, man, I am so busy. I am swamped. And you're the one that's going to pick up the phone and set the appointment. I said, how did that go? I said, when you set that appointment, what did you ask them? Oh, I just asked them for their name, their info, and when we can come out and what their issues were. So you did nothing that is going to help that sales rep close the job. There's a whole script that we use, and it's a whole process we use so that when the sales rep gets there, they are set up on a tee so well that the only way that that sales rep isn't going to sell the job is if he screws it up.
Yeah, I love that because I think there's a lot of leverage to be had on that initial conversation. You know, and it's strategic question asking, right? Getting them engaged, getting the commitment, and getting the information you need to, like you said. Now it's a fucking layup, and you know what? If you can't make a layup, there's a reason why you can't make the layup. Why? What is it? There's a breakdown in the fundamentals? Let's talk about that in our next meeting. How often, because I've seen this a lot, and you know your sample size is much larger than mine on the sales side. How often do you get a company that has great process, but that process isn't managed correctly, and people start to stray away, right? You know, everyone's doing so well, and then 90 days later, our metrics are in the fucking shitter, and now we got to figure out why. And what I find, just in, you know, and I observe these things from a distance, is like people aren't doing they're not following the process.
If it's not managed correctly, it's not going to be followed. This is why we talk about the homeowner that trains the sales reps. Because when we train the sales reps at first, they come out and man, they're killing it. They're doing so well. And they just start to go down like this. And it's like, well, why do you think that is? And they're like, I don't know. It's just so frustrating. It's like, I know exactly why.
Yeah.
The homeowner is now training your sales reps. And they're like, how is the homeowner training my sales rep? The sales rep goes out and let's just say that they don't get into the attic. And that homeowner does the worst thing they can possibly do, buy. So now that sales rep's like, well, I don't need to get in the attic. The guy, I didn't do it, and the guy had just bought. And so that's why I think it was Reagan that said, trust but verify. You know, trust that your reps know it, but verify that they're actually doing it. We use, in Top Rep, we have a co-pilot program where you can record the entire appointment and you can hear everything, and it breaks it down. So over a course of 5 minutes, you can see everything that worked and didn't work in that appointment. And we do this with our clients where we will go through some of these. We'll do some spot checks because obviously I can't go through every appointment with them, but we'll do some spot checks, or they'll send that call over and say, hey, Chuck, can you listen to this real quick? And we're like, hey, for one, he didn't get in the attic. Two, he only did half the presentation. And he's coming out like, I don't know why, you know, the price is such an issue, you know, like, well, you didn't give him any
value wasn't conveyed.
That's right. And so that's why when you say that the process isn't followed, it's because the sales manager is still tending to his flock. You know, he's not managing them. He's not making sure that everybody's doing the activities. You have to manage the activities, not the result. If a sales manager is taught that you need to get results, you know when they try to figure out when they got results? After the month is over. Like, man, I don't know why we didn't sell what we were supposed to sell last month. Well, yeah, because you didn't manage your team.
So it's
you didn't
poor
make
sales
sure that
leadership.
That's right.
Yeah, if we want to be direct about it.
That's correct.
What's the best way to? Because here's the thing. I don't think that everyone who struggles with that isn't a good leader. I think a lot of the times they get distracted, and they've got a lot going on. So what's the best way for somebody who has the ability as a sales leader and has proven such in the past, who's kind of just gotten off track, what's the best way to rein them in and get them back focused?
It's through the key competencies. As they need, first of all, what I would and this is, free advice right here, is I think every organization that watches this, they need to get their team and have them do their price presentation in their next sales meeting. And they're going to realize where their problems sit. And when they see that everybody has a different price presentation, because that's what's going to happen, everybody's doing it differently, is don't come down on the team. We just need to come up with the solution. Get to the solution. Skip the yelling and screaming. Let's get to the solution. The guys, this is what I wanted everybody to see, that you guys all have different price presentations. You guys all have different ways of getting to the end, and that has to stop.
Right. Have you ever, what is your stance on like spontaneous role play?
Spontaneous role play?
Yeah, so
Like we do hallway pitches where the sales manager will have a pivot point card in his pocket and he just pops it up.
yes. Do you think that's effective?
It's extremely effective because inside of a sales meeting, they're expecting it.
Right.
But if I go in, even if you don't, you just go up and say, hey, by the way, man, you've done a great job, but your price is way too much. And watch them like, oh, man. And it's like, and we all laugh about it. We don't get mad, because it's just like kids. If you get mad at them, then they're just going to run away and hold their feelings in. But as a sales rep, they feel the same way. They were having a great day until you came along and popped that on them. And so now it's like, hey, man, it's all right. Let's just make sure that you understand it next time. Let's cover this thing, make sure that you know it, and that the next time I pop this on you, and I'll pop the exact same thing because I want them to win. Right. I'm not going to throw any curveballs at them. The next time I see him, hey, man, your price is too much. And he jumps right into it, and I'm going to give him a high five.
Yeah, no doubt. It's holding them accountable because you want them to be successful, and it's repetition, right? And yeah, like you said, if you're expecting something, fantastic, great, you can recite to me a pitch. But if you can spontaneously, we're just going to wait for the other 3 quotes, and you can hit that objection and overcome that spontaneously, the likelihood of you ever being stumped and caught with your pants down by a homeowner and not knowing what to do diminishes exponentially in my mind.
That's right.
I'm about to fucking join Top Rep. I want to learn more.
Man, we would love to have you there in February.
Oh, man.
It's fun to watch the attendees talk about what they were like before Top Rep and then how much fun sales is after Top Rep. Because it is so much more fun. When you know what to do, it is so much more fun than I'm going to go to the house and we'll figure this out along the way. Or I'm going to go and I'm going to get this advice from somebody else that doesn't work, but I don't know of any other company out there that'll teach me any better. So I'm just going to keep doing this. The one that I heard here recently is I'm just reduced to the ridiculous. I'm like, do you drag your knuckles when you walk too? I mean, nobody does that anymore. And the homeowners, we say the homeowners have all been to sales school. They've all heard this shit.
Right.
So stop playing the tactic game and start doing the understanding game. I understand what is happening right now, and this is how we need to deal with the situation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good point. You mentioned earlier in insurance, when you're doing upgrades, it's not sales, it's suggestions. Talk more about that.
So
Please.
In insurance, when you got to the point where you have to sell something other than yourself, because you have to sell something if you're going to do like a service agreement or a contingency, sure. You really have to sell. But when you get to the point where you're trying to close the job, they're already buying something, even if it's your lowest package, the cheapest thing you have, they're going to buy something because the insurance company is ultimately paying for it. But when we start offering multiple packages, say you're going to offer an SBS shingle and the ultimate package, everything that you would put on your house if cost was not an option. That would be your top option. Then you have, the Ascend Pro, and that's the middle. And maybe that's your free upgrade. Maybe you have a base roof, the Ascend Pro, and hey, just so that we're going to go ahead and upgrade you to the Ascend Pro. But let me explain this other package, the Ascend Elite package, and they already feel good that you're going to upgrade them, and now you're just making the suggestion that they may want to skip a couple storms. I love that, and that didn't come from me. That came from one of our clients. He says, you may want to skip a couple storms and maybe a couple of your deductible payments. And what that means is, if we can put an SBS rubber shingle on there, everyone else in your area is going to have to get their roof replaced again if they go with a typical shingle when the next hailstorm or whatever. However, you may be able to skip a couple. You might come away with some scrapes and some scars, but you're still good. You don't have to make that deductible payment. And maybe the third or fourth storm, Now that hail, if you're in the middle of Dallas or wherever it's really bad, that hail beating down on it will eventually wear away at it, but not the first couple. I mean, that's really what we want to position that, when we are talking about upgrades. Maybe what they want as an upgrade is, the F-wave shingles and that kind of stuff is talking about a whole different category. If you want to talk about metal, I typically like to stay in the same family and not go that direction, but you can.
How come?
Well, if they are going to go for, I have a good, better, and best shingle. I have a good, better, and best metal. Now, inside the shingle, I may use an F-wave shingle as my top.
Okay.
I like to use Malarkey. I really like their SBS rubber shingle. I do. We do I could send you a video of it, of what we call the burrito, or the shingle burrito, where we will roll up a cheaper, asphalt shingle, and we're going to roll it up, and then we're going to turn it, we're going to roll it up, and we're going to let them know that we're putting 15 years of wear and tear on that shingle right there. And then we flatten it back out. Then I take an SBS rubber shingle, and we're going to roll it up and say, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put 15 years of wear and tear and roll it up this way, turn it and roll it up that way, and I'm going to flatten it back out. And say, now I'm going to pick up that asphalt shingle, and I'm going to hit it, and there's the wind, there's the rain, and all these granules are going all over the place. I'm like, that's what's happening. And then I pick up that SBS rubber shingle, and I do the same thing, and like 2 granules fall off of it. Say, that's why I can offer you a true lifetime warranty on this product. I mean, this will outlast your house. So when you show them that, all of a sudden the value becomes real.
Have you had any exposure to the EuroShield roofing system?
Not yet. I would like to look at it. I would like to look at it and not just, pick it up and feel it. I want to actually see it work. Some of these guys that are really making some great tests, I'd like to see it go through. I've heard some great things about it.
Yeah, it was interesting. We did the hail cannon test down in Florida, which whatever. They actually, so down at RoofCon, Leslie, the president, was there, and they had a EuroShield roof where I guess a tree bounced off the roof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
Bounced off the roof.
So if I'm fucking up the story, I'm sorry, but I would love to know your opinion once you get the opportunity to look at that, because everyone that I've seen examine it is kind of blown away. But link in comments for both. No. Yeah, EuroShield /Ascend. Buy from there. No. I like that. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I put this question out on a piece of short form content, and I don't think I got an answer from you, so maybe you didn't see it.
Okay.
Is it more challenging for a retail rep to transition into the insurance game, or the insurance rep to transition into retail?
So it's a little bit of both. It's easier for a retail rep to transfer into insurance, even though they don't like it. Retail reps hate insurance, and insurance reps hate retail. The reason why is because insurance reps hate asking for money, and retail reps hate coming back out. Right. They are there, they want to sell it, and they want to move on. And when I told my retail reps that we're going to learn insurance, and they were excited at first, and then they find out they got to come back 3 times. They're like, screw this. Come back out 3 times. Why would I come back out? So it was a little tough. I mean, we had the top storm sales guy at A.D.D, and his name is Matt Burkhart. This guy is amazing with insurance, and I'm not going to say why, but he was brought to A.D.D because he needed to come home. The family is pretty much just sick and tired of him traveling, I think. And so we had the pleasure of having him, and we learned so much from working with Matt. He now owns Monarch Roofing it's not Martin Pettigrew's. He owns Monarch in Columbus, Ohio, which does probably just as well as Martin. But to take him and turn him into a retail rep was a nightmare. It was hard because it just was different. He just didn't like having to ask for the sale, and he's like, man, I just that's just not who I am. But yet taking some of the other guys, the guys that we trained in retail, and bringing them into insurance, they look at Matt, they see the money he's making, which is great, but they look at Matt like, Matt, why in the hell would you want to go back to a customer's house?
Right.
And but they all do it. They know that that's part of it. As they say, it's the beast of what we do, but it's hard. If you had the opportunity to separate the two, I would.
Yeah, it's I always love hearing, people's take on that, and that's
Here's the other thing is when the retail or the insurance industry says that, I mean, with retail, man, I can't get the price that I want. What do you mean you can't get the price you want? You name your price. I mean, if you sell it right, the price that you want is whatever it is you say it is.
I mean, but that just comes back to having an underdeveloped sales team, we'll call it, right?
It is.
That's not positioned
Uneducated,
value, because in every market you've got the companies that there's a range of $600 a square to $1,050 a square for the same offering. And yeah, maybe the guy that's getting $1,050 has 30 years of branding behind him, but guess what? There's guys getting $875 while you're getting $600.
Right.
And there's a couple key differences, and your sales process is probably the most glaring, if I'm being honest. From my experience, for what it's worth. I don't know. Right. What do I know? I'm just some marketing guy. Let me ask you this, Chuck. Can branding and advertising impact your sales? As far as
branding and advertising, absolutely it can.
Yeah, so not just from like a revenue number, but what is the synergy between the opportunities that you get, the brand that you're building, and your closing percentage? Let's say. Mm-hmm.
Well, so let's put it this way. When people say, hey, I want to close at 60%, and they see the reason why they want 60% is because that's where we were at A.D.D. Well, what they don't understand is when we walked into a gas station, people would sing our jingle when they saw our shirts. Right. I mean, you were literally living under a rock if you didn't know who A.D.D Roof was. Right. And I mean, we flew flags over OSU stadiums. I mean, everybody knew who we were, and that enabled us to get that 60%. And so to get those higher levels is not sales. It's part of it, but it's branding. Now, when people say, oh my gosh, I need to start branding. Well, can you afford to brand? Because branding's expensive. So make sure that you have a lifeline inside of your business, such as leads, and they keep coming in, and now you have some access money. Now start looking at branding. But get to a point where you are surviving and thriving, then you can start branding. And you start small and you start working your way out with your brand. There are also free things that you can do with your brand, but branding is extremely important to your close rate. We told our sales reps that if you didn't close a deal, it's because you screwed something up, because that person called A.D Roof and they were hoping to get an A.D Roof, and along the line you screwed up somewhere. Right.
Yeah, there's just so much credibility there with your company going into that sales meeting. It's like, what'd you fuck up?
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. It's a very interesting point. And yeah, branding is expensive. And, typically when I have younger roofing companies come to me, it's like, I look at SEO closer towards branding than acquisition because it's a long-term investment. And I know that in the first few years, and there's exceptions to this, but in the first years, like, look at the statistics of how many contractors go out of business. So what's important? Liquidity. So let's focus on acquisition-based stuff. But that doesn't mean that you can't buy 100 sweatshirts and hand them out at the gym and have people promoting them. I heard, I think it was Tim Brown had Mark Adair on his podcast, and it might not have even been him. I don't know. I heard a clip somewhere, and I think it was Tim Brown, where they were talking about having your team go to local businesses, take a photo of your truck in front of that business, and leave a 5-star review. And now if you think about like restaurants and how many people look at the reviews for restaurants on a daily basis in a market, and that business owner that sees those reviews coming in and sees your brand, I'm like, that's fucking genius, right? Doesn't cost you $1. Like, that's some next level shit. So shout out to whoever put that idea into my mind, and I'm sorry I can't give definitive credit here, but maybe we'll circle back on it. But like that's really good. That's a great way, like grassroots style. That's going to cost you nothing to get your brand in front of a lot of people, and a lot of people that'll eventually need your service.
I mean, there are ways of branding, and like with Bullet Roof, I mean, we would damn near have a carnival for every install. We were draping this huge banner from the customer's house. Obviously, we got permission to do it. Sure. I mean, it looked like we were opening up shop right there at that customer's house. And we had the flags, the grand opening flags at the street.
Yep.
And in some cases, if we were in a neighborhood where we knew that these were like first-time homeowners where a lot of kids are, we're asking the good humor guy to come out. And the sales reps there just handing out flyers. You probably already got a flyer at your house because I went ahead and I walked around the neighborhood. But just in case you didn't, here's another one.
If you had to isolate it and, what the most important question that's asked during a sales presentation, what is it?
Most important question that's asked. Well, here's one of them. If it's not from a lead aggregator, is what made you have us out today? What made you call? And you want to say your company's name. So what made you call American WeatherTechs? And here it comes. And they just told you why they're going to buy today. And this is in the first 5 minutes of meeting them. That's one of them. The other one is so, and this is, everybody's heard this. It's nothing new. Other than price and affordability, or other than money, is there any reason why I couldn't put you on the production calendar while I'm here? And they're like, no, because that's a no question. If you can ask no questions, those are easy to ask. I'm not asking a lot of yes questions where people are like, oh man, you got to get them saying yes. Not really. As people say, sales changes. Now we ask a lot of no questions because no still can mean yes. Is there any reason why you would choose anybody else? No. That was easy. But is there, with everything that you went through, would you choose us? And at that moment, they're like, well, that's a big commitment right there to say yes to.
How many questions as such, like those trial closes, typically take place during an effective sales call?
How many? Mm-hmm. You'd be shocked. Not many.
How many do and how many should?
Oh, you're talking about how many reps actually do it?
Well, if we're sitting here, right, and I'm the homeowner and you're selling me, right,
yeah.
and we start at the beginning, you're going to ask some no questions throughout that conversation.
Yeah.
And my guess is that you're going to leverage that information to close me when I start making excuses at the end as to why we're not going to move forward. Well, you said, well, correct me if so like,
some people are going to take this statement wrong, but I say this a lot. Anything that you say will be used against you at the closing table. Right. I'm just looking for information. It's like when you show up to a house and the homeowner's like, hey, just so you know, man, I'm not doing anything today. Which means that they're writing me a check. That's a scared homeowner is what that is. And I might as well say, well, why don't you go ahead and write me a check and we could save the time. But, I'm going to put my hands up and say, hey, I'm sure that the people in the office told you that I'm only here to give you information, right? And now the defenses go down and here comes the questions. And these questions are going to be the questions that they're going to lie to me once the price is on the table. Right. I'm going to get all these things that they're going to lie to me about later. I'm getting them out now. And then I'm going to remind them of those later.
That's it. How important is the delivery of the questions that you're asking and the tack that you take when you're reminding them that they're contradicting themselves when you're trying to close them?
There's a lot of tact that happens. When I am going to, I'm not going to say, hey, just 2 minutes ago, you told me that you've been working on this for 2 years. I mean, let's get in the saddle, buddy. Let's get moving. That's not how this goes. But we are going to, in a sense, remind them that they've been looking at doing this for 2 years, and it's not going to get any cheaper. We're going to, and you learn how to do this in the process of this inside of Top Rep on how we remind them of this. Sometimes it's using the phrase, my biggest fear is one of them. And that's when we're going to deliver information that would typically make a homeowner upset. So I'm gonna put that on me instead of them. Man, my biggest fear is that you're going to go through and you're going to go through all these different estimates that you say you're going to go through, and that you're going to end up with the last one because now you're just so tired of having all these roofers out. And once that roof is on, you're going to realize why you chose that person to be your last estimate. That's my biggest fear, man.
And for anyone who's watching this that's not an Ascend customer yet, just know that the My Biggest Fear conversation is going to be had if you do reach out and start questioning whether or not you're making the right choice. Because it legitimately is my biggest fear, and I'm sure it is for the reps that are out there. It's like, it's a cold world out there. We want you to be with a good company.
That's right.
My biggest fear. That's really good, Chuck. Thank you for that. Let me ask you this. I got questions. So,
keep going.
Yeah, so you've got the objections, right? We laid out the price, and now here come the lies. When they start giving you an objection, and you're addressing and kindly reminding them that, well, that's just simply not the case, in the very tactful way that you would, do you start? Because I've heard a couple different companies do it a couple different ways. Some will start proactively then addressing all the things that they talked about that they feel are going to be the objections that are going to come up. Is that a good strategy or is that a bad strategy?
It's a good strategy because you do want to tackle things that may come up later. Mm-hmm. Like I love to ask people, so what made you decide to go ahead and do this today? I'm waiting for them to tell me that, I'm not doing anything today. How long have you been thinking about getting this project done? And these are things that we were taught long ago, and they kind of went by the wayside, and we're just kind of pulling them back out of that repertoire. But it was so good because when they tell me that, they need to think about it, and they just got done telling me they've been thinking about it for 2 years, that does help. But when I'm bringing it out and they're telling me, it's less likely that they're going to use that excuse afterwards. After the price, they're less likely to use, I need to think about it. And so we will try and fight a lot of the objections, but they're still going to come. I want you to know that they were thinking of those objections before you ever showed up to the house. People, I love these trainers that say that you brought those objections. No, you didn't. They made a list of them before you ever got to the house.
Right.
When the guy came to sell me, now I was planning on buying anyway because I don't have time to go through tons of contractors because I have a rental that needed some AC and heat. But typically I would already have everything out that I'm going to say that I'm going to let him know it's too expensive because I need to get the price down, which I did. I threw out that he was most expensive. What's funny is I told him he was very expensive, and he was about $4,000 less than what I thought he would be. But I wasn't going to tell him that.
Exactly.
But again, I mean, they thought of those objections before he ever walked in. And so we want a price condition because we know that they're going to tell us we're expensive. We want to make sure that we bring the value. And then we're going to handle the shopper through our price and value guarantee. We're going to let them shop us out. Well, people don't have time, for one, to shop you out. People are like, well, man, they're going to come back and expect a better price. They're going to go out and find somebody. It's like, dude, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've had 2 people challenge me on this. 20 years, 2 people. And both of them, we got through because it wasn't anywhere near apples to apples. And what I ended up doing, this is one of my favorite things to do when someone has another bid that is sitting there. And I'm going to let them know and say, hey, so let's just say that all these, if they told me that my competitor is cheaper, and I'll say, hey, let's just go ahead. Let's take a look at everything. But while we're doing this, let's just say that we lay them all out and they're all the same price. Who would you choose? And they're like, well, you. So I'm going to have them tell me why. And what they're doing is making up the gap. And then I'm going to tell them, say, hey, this is kind of your lucky day. And the reason why I say this is I want to save you some money. For one, you've already done your homework, and I'm going to give you some credit for that. But also, I want to buy that other estimate off of you. And they're like, what? Yeah, I'm going to buy that person's estimate off of you. I'm going to give you $100 for that person's estimate if we move forward. And the person that was riding with me, We got in the car and they're like, why would you do that? I says, you didn't think that I was going to let him keep that other estimate, did you? That estimate, one way or another, was leaving with me. We did the same thing when we were advertising in all these dollar magazines.
Yeah.
Is we spent more money than anybody else, so we could place our ad anywhere we wanted. And so what we did is we knew we were always the first one in the house. And we always asked that dollar magazine, says, I want to be on the other side, on the front of that person's ad. So let's say that it was like we were bath fitter. So if it was Rebath, I want to be on the back side of Rebath's ad. And they'd always look like, why would you want to do that? Well, because when we go out and we ask them, so do you have any discounts or coupons? They're like, yeah, we do. The dollar magazine. Can you go ahead and get that for me real quick? And they bring it, and I rip that page out, say, that's what we're going to use. And I put it over here. Whose ad do they no longer have? So again, everything's part of a strategy. Everything is we do it for a certain reason in the house.
God, that's so good. Can we role play? Can I be a homeowner? Can we assume that you've gone through a sales pitch and everything, all the questions have been asked, and you've kind of laid it out perfectly, and then we'll just go through? Absolutely. All right. So how much is this going to cost me, Chuck? Let's get to the price because we've been here and I've got things to do. So
So you want to go through a whole price presentation? I mean, I need to put that. Let's go to if we can. I guess we could.
How long typically is a price presentation?
Our price presentation is about 10 minutes, but here's what I would do. So yeah, Mike, I totally understand. Let's go ahead. Let's put the pricing in front of you. I want to give you just give me a couple minutes to work up some different scenarios, because one of the things that I'm really good at is making this affordable. And so, give me a couple minutes to work up a couple different scenarios. And so then I'm going to show you a good, better, and best. And that it's kind of in reverse. It's like a best, better, and good. And so then I'm going to say, so this is what we have. And no pricing is on this thing at the moment. And I'm going to start going down through that best. This is our Storm Shield package. And I'm going to start taking you down through that. And then I'm going to put the retail price. And I'm going to let them know that this is the retail price. And I'm going to put a slash, and this is how much it would cost you monthly. Now, I'm going to jump over to the good, Michael. And so with the good, this is how we compete with all the contractors in town. This is what everyone else is going to come out and pitch you. And so you can see the differences here. We're going to go through those differences. And then I'm going to write that price. And it's much lower than the other one. Now, not long ago, the customers that we do have, when we asked them, what was it that they liked about what they bought, and what they would like to see if they were to purchase again. And what we heard is that they wanted that ultimate package, but they wanted it a little bit closer to that base roof pricing. Thus, the pro package was born. And let me show you what we have. And it has a lot of the stuff that's inside the bigger package. And I'm going down through it, and I'm writing that in the pricing. Now, you mentioned that you had a discount, and I see that you have that discount, and that brings you down. And then maybe it's a 10% off coupon that they have, and that brings you down to your 30-day price. And I'll write that pricing, but before I do that, I'm going to ask them which package do they feel fits their family, their home, and their family the best. And 90% of them go straight to the middle package that I told them was the best thing for them. And then I'm going to just center in on that one package. I'm going to write that price down and that payment. But I'm not going to mention the price. They see it. It's right there in front of them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mention the payment. So this one is, we're bringing it down to a 30-day price, and it's only, it's $255 a month. You'd be able to afford over, $255 a month over the next 30 days, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what I just did was take the pressure off of them. Because just before I did this, I asked them, is there any reason why they wouldn't want to be put on the production calendar? Any reason why they wouldn't want to be put on the production calendar while I'm here? And they said, no, as long as you can make it affordable. So now I'm asking, if it's affordable over the next 30 days. And they said, I think we can afford that. Yeah. So just a minute ago, you told me that if I was able to make this thing affordable, that you want to go ahead and move forward. Do you have a driver's license? We'll go ahead and get you financed, get this thing rolling. So that's how we roll through that price presentation.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's three things that stuck out to me, and you tell me. I'm assuming they're intentional. You seem like you've done this once or twice, Chuck. You mentioned, but you didn't. It wasn't emphasized. It was subtle. It was 30-day price.
Yep.
Family in your home, as opposed to what makes the most sense.
Right.
And monthly payment.
That's right.
For me, those three things, while subtle, all stood out to me and would be very important. Right? You're understanding and empathizing with the fact that this is to protect my family and my home, my investment. 30-day price, you're expressing a sense of urgency. And monthly payment, God, I don't understand why people don't sell monthly payments. Like, you go and buy a fucking truck, and it's $984 a month. Not once are they going to tell you it's $78,000.
Yeah.
And it's worked for since the Model T, folks. It's make your offerings affordable, right? And it's, I mean, do you see, again, you deal with a much larger sample size. When you go into an organization, do you typically see the same thing where they're not presenting monthly payments as much as
most of the time they're not. That's one of the biggest questions I get. You'd think that, hey, we want to learn how to close, but most organizations ask me, how do we present financing? And it's not hard. You just put the payment down. And like, oh, should I give them 3 options? No. I was told when I went through boot camp way back that, where do you go when you're at your 30-day price? Well, you can go to your today price. Where do you go if you give them your best option? Home. So I'm going to give them their 5-year payment, but I also know that I have a same as cash, and I also know that I have a 10 or a 15-year in my pocket. So that's going to give them the option to go back and forth with me. Nobody just looks at it and says, man, everything looks good. Let's do it. It's very rare that ever happens. So the man with the most options wins. One of my favorite mentors, Jason Haught of Bathfitter, when I first started working with him, he says, here's the biggest piece of advice you'll ever be given is the man with the most options always wins. And so therefore, I always give myself options in the house.
So is it very important not to inundate that homeowner with those options? Well, because you can have the options while they don't necessarily know you have the options, right? And I feel like that's important. It's the same reason as a real estate agent, you don't show them 47 fucking houses that fit their needs, right? Show them 2, 3, maybe.
I'm not going to give them a reason to think about it.
Right.
I mean, when they tell me they need to think about it, it's just it came out of their mouth. But then there's many times where the sales rep gives them a reason where they really do need to think about it. It's like the floor coatings. They put out all these different samples, like 50 different color samples, and the homeowners is like, I don't know.
Yeah, right. You've made it impossible for me to make a decision. Come back next week.
And I think it was Tom Hopkins that says it's the rule of 3. And I've always lived by that. It's never been old. Give them the 3 options. Give them 2 options if you really want, but don't give them 1 and don't give them 4.
Yeah, it's so funny because just naturally, I go to a restaurant and there's a fucking 4-page menu. I'm like, sir, are you ready yet? I'm like, I have no fucking idea what I want. Just give me a steak, I guess. I don't know, right? And I might be missing out on like a Michelin-rated meal because I don't know what's best here because you've given me so many damn options. Like, I like a place where it's like, you know what, we do 7 things really well. In food, I want more than 3 options. But, maybe like 7, 8 things. There's maybe a daily special, some appetizers. But, inundating me with 157 different dishes. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
It's too much. I'm like a dog in a dog park, Chuck. Just overstimulated. There's way too much going on. Yeah.
That's right.
What questions
But
you got for me,
yeah,
man?
man, it's sales is kind of bringing this thing full circle. Um, Sales is an art. It is a craft to be mastered. It is not something that people just do. And unfortunately, too many owners will hire people to just do the basic routine, which is show up to the house, do their inspection, do a little presentation, and then give a price. And that's where they stop. And the only reason why is because they don't know any better. I'm not going to look at the business owner and say you did it wrong. They just didn't know any better. The reason why you hire a sales professional is to get that deal when they start to say you've done a great job, but that's when a sales professional is needed. That's why they were hired. That's why we pay them $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year. I can go out and get a $15 an hour admin to go and drop off a price. I don't need a sales rep to go drop a price.
Yeah.
That's why I hate when they call them estimators. It drives me nuts.
Well, I mean, that's an absolute fact. And I'm going to circle back to what you did in the aerospace, right? You optimize a process that typically would take 3 months. You did in 3 weeks, save millions of dollars. Here's what a lot of people miss. We close at 31%. We're good with our gross revenue. We're good with our profit. We're okay. But what if just by bringing 1 or 2 people in, you could exert the same effort, have the same stress, and your profit could be up 17% because they're fucking closing deals that your sales reps aren't.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing as far as inefficient processes or overlap that you have within your company where you guys are wasting man hours consistently on dumb shit that's not resulting in any meaningful production. But you have to just be situationally aware. You have to acknowledge the issues, and you got to be willing to address them. And I would say we got to do a better job as an industry doing that. That's all.
We're really good at putting bodies in seats, but not putting the right people in the right place.
Yes, and I asked somebody, what's your time worth as an owner of a company? It's like, is it $300 an hour? Is it $500 an hour? Because if we could go through all the time that's being wasted in the absence of, let's say, an automation, or all the time that's being wasted in you double working, you doing shit that, your number 2 or your admin's supposed to be doing because it's just chaotic and there's disconnect. And if we start tallying up those fucking hours by the number of days you work in a year and we assign a value to that as far as how much money you're costing yourself, like that shit becomes real and there's a lot more urgency to address the issue.
Yeah.
Oh,
so true.
Man. Do you have any questions for me?
The fact that so you have a digital agency. What is your niche? What is your shtick, man? What is it that you do better than anybody else? That's what I'd like to know.
What do I do better than everyone else?
Because I hear Ascend, I hear Hook, I hear Hard Service Solutions, I hear Rhino, and it seems like everybody does something different better.
Yeah, so I love Hook. If I have a situation where I don't have an opportunity to work with somebody because of, we're maxed out in that market, I'm sending them to Tim, and I fully trust their team to do a great job, right? I won't refer people to almost anybody. I make almost hardly any referrals because I don't trust people, and I know that sticks with me, right? If that lands in a shitty spot, like that stink is on my reputation as well. Subsequently, if I make an introduction and it goes well, that goes very well for me. Like, Mike's an upstanding guy. He put me in the right direction, even though he couldn't help me. What makes, I think, Ascend different is I've made it a point to be very intimately involved in a lot of different facets of the client's business that doesn't involve their Google Ads, SEO, or their custom websites. And what that's done is it's giving me incredible insights as to the back end, the sales, the processes that aren't happening, CRMs, automations, all these different things that most agencies don't they're not set up in a way where they have that information. So I think it gives me a unique competitive advantage when I can speak to these things, and I can talk about Corey down at South Shore, where, he's gone from February 2020, he had started, I think, in 2020. He did 1.8 million his first full year. He's over 11.5 million now. And, as you scale a company, there's some fucking eggs being broken to make that omelet. And, the eggs you're breaking from going from 1 to 3 versus 3 to 6 versus 6 to 10 are significantly different. So having the relationships that I have with my clients and making it a point to, I guess, not stay in my lane in that regard has given me incredible insight as far as how these things work together harmoniously and how we can add value in more ways than just in what we do. Long-winded answer. Sorry. It wasn't a great elevator pitch.
I mean, it's when you look at them, because so many of these contractors, they're looking for a great digital company, but it really does. I mean, like Roof Market is just great. I know they're good. Mm-hmm. I know Hook is good. I know you're good. I know Rhino's good. And it's like, well, man, do I just roll the dice? Do I, how do I pick? And it's tough. But you also have to look at what are you trying to get out of this? What are you trying to get? And then trying to bring, if I was to come to you, one of my biggest pet peeves is Facebook, because I know in our Facebook, it's one of our best ROIs. But we also have all these bot leads that we have to fish through, and it drives our phone reps crazy.
Yep.
But yet, if you try to get them to a forum outside of Facebook, then they have this big warning sign that you're leaving Facebook, and we never see that lead. So we're trying to do other things to try and get that the bot leads down, and still be able to not sacrifice the opportunity of having a lead that we may not get if we qualify too much. And then on the flip side of this is the SEO. We know that whether we're going to use the landing pages or we're going to use our website, how can I drive more traffic? How can I be better? Because what I don't want is a cookie cutter website that a digital company just made a copy of this, put it over here, and threw my logo on it because it works. Right. But now I have the same one as my guy down the street. And so there's so much of that. And how is it that you fight some of that?
Yeah, so we do full custom build. So HTML, JavaScript, CSS. We're not using a lot of companies. And again, there's a place for it in the market, and there's nothing wrong with it. But again, my biggest thing is what I want to create is an immersive experience. I don't want somebody to walk into a Ryan home. There's nothing wrong with Ryan homes. They're great they're great to live in, but it doesn't compare to a plot of land that you buy that you fucking design every nook and cranny in that house that you build. Everything where your wife wants it is perfect, right? It's everything you ever dreamed of. It's your forever home, and you built it from scratch. And that's what we want to do, because what I know is that people don't trust marketing companies, and they don't trust roofers and contractors. So let's get that defense down on that initial interaction once they decide to click that ad that they see, or they decide to go past the ads and click the maps, or decide to go past all that and click the organic. Let's bring them into an experience that is not going to be matched by anybody. So we don't use website builders or themes of any kind. They're all custom build to create that immersive experience and build trust from the very, very beginning.
Right. That's perfect.
Another thing that's different is I charge for a consultation. So what I know is that we're usually the second, third, maybe fourth company people work with, and they have broken-hearted syndrome. Somebody fucked them over, promised them the moon, didn't do what they'd say they do. So what I like to do is I do a consult. It's going to last 2 and 3 hours, and I'm going to go over everything. And maybe 10% of that's going to be talking about what Ascend can do for you and what we've done for other people. The vast majority of that is we're going to talk about your company. What is the structure of your company? Who works for you? What are their roles? Do they have clearly defined roles? Who answers the phone? What does it sound like? Right? What if the phone rings 4 times? Do you have overflow so that this person's not rushing your customer off the phone? What about nights and weekends? Is there an answering service? What are the responsibilities and the infrastructure that you've built within your company so that you can't come to me in 3 months and tell me that my leads suck because nobody's answering the phone? Selfishly is why I'm doing it. But again, I can understand that these things happen, and I can help you work through these things and provide solutions even in that initial consult, right?
That's huge.
Go through your Google business profile, show you how to optimize it, show you things that people don't know that aren't at surface level that are going to help you have a better chance of being present when people are looking in local search. Go through your Google Guaranteed. Let's see how that's set up. There are some things you can do to try to manipulate it. They're not as vast as like a Google ad campaign as far as manipulating position, but there are things that you can do. So we go through all these different things, how to hold a marketing company accountable. Yes, SEO takes forever, but people use that as a guise to fucking take advantage of people every day. So let's show you the KPIs that you should be looking at and some softwares that you can use to keep them honest. Co-op.
I like that.
Let's talk about co-op and rebates. Like, what are you getting? How are you holding your manufacturers accountable to make sure that they're being good to you, right? You want a strategic partner with us? Same thing with your manufacturer and anyone you're doing business with? Let's talk about it. Let's lay the cards on the table, and maybe you look at, seeing what someone else will offer you, just to keep them honest, right? I'm a big fan of being honest with one another. And I've had companies that have gotten significantly more money in co-op just by simply having the conversation with their rep. Right?
Right.
We want a tiered incentive system for somebody who is growth-minded and wants to have a vested interest in our growth. Our lifetime value is probably better than anyone else you're working with because we're younger, and look at our last 3 years of year-over-year growth. And by the way, look at our revenue and then look at our profit per lead channel that Mike's doing on Google. So we know that this is going to work. We're just scaling the ingredients. Doesn't that seem like something you'd want to invest in? Because, if you're a manufacturer, here's the thing. If you're a manufacturer, you've got X amount of dollars per market to help contractors. You're not going to go out and say, can I pay you more money? Same way as if you got somebody doing a job for $25 an hour and they're worth $40, you're not going to bring it to their attention immediately and say, hey, can I pay you $40 an hour? Show them why you're worth it. The same way that person's going to show you why they're worth it over time, and you're going to consistently increase their pay. So these are all things that I hit on within that consult where it's like, dude, if you don't sign with us, God bless you. You've compensated me for my time. And you know what? You're going to leave that conversation far better than you came into it. And I promise you, even if it's addition by subtraction, by not choosing a shitty marketing company, when you leave that conversation, it'll be some of the best $1,500 you ever invest into your company.
It's perfect.
So that's the difference. I'm sorry. I went on a
that's
rant
huge.
there.
I mean, I get so many of these digital companies where they go into their update meeting and all they want to do is talk about the traffic. And it's like, nobody cares about the traffic other than the digital guy. When you're talking to the owner, the only thing he cares about is how many leads came out of that traffic. And somewhere along that line, there's no leads. You got a lot of traffic. We were just talking about this with one of our events. We threw out an ad. We have all this traffic going to this page. For whatever reason, nobody's making any action on that page. Like, guys, let's figure out why. Yeah. Is there something wrong with the page? Is there something? Whatever the case may have been, we need to figure that out. But most of these digital marketers, the point is, most of these digital marketers, they just want to talk about the traffic. And they think that that's their job. It's the traffic. It's not. I pay for the results. And what I like about what you were talking about is you're also helping them to say, look, here's the leads. The leads are coming in. Let's take a look from where the leads come in and where you're taking it from there. Yeah. That's huge. That's value right there.
Yeah, I agree. And, I try to implore everyone I work with to do a better job in tracking and documenting, right? Because you could have the best CRM in the world and you could pay $150,000 for the most sophisticated software management and CRM systems, and if the data entry sucks, so too is going to be the CRM, right? So, that's right. I really beat that drum. At the end of the day, it does make an impact on what we bring as far as ROI, because if you're closing less deals because breakdowns in processes, it does impact the perceived and actual value of what we do. But, we could have a whole podcast just on this stuff, Chuck. I love talking about this stuff. If you can't see, I'm elated. You got anything else? Any other questions that you would like answered before we wrap up?
No, I'm good, man. This was fun.
Yeah, dude, very, very grateful for you stopping in. Those are good questions too. I enjoy those questions. Thank you for that. You've added an immense amount of value to me personally just through this conversation, and I can't imagine that there would be someone who listened to this that didn't take away something that will impact their life personally and professionally. So for that, I am also very, very grateful. And if there's any way that I can reciprocate, you just let me know.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate everything.
Awesome. And thanks to the listeners. We appreciate you guys as well. See ya.